welcome once again to Postcard, and to Leigh. He's suffering under the slings and arrows of whatever it is, still in the UK, and he's waving, he's making rude signs at me, but he does that, and he tries to put me off, but I will not be put off. I will carry on, and he's still not happy because it's been a bad week with his health. That's true.
It is. It just is. I don't know what to say other than it is. Yeah, I went to the opticians, got told I was blind, and I thought, well, you know, he doesn't. She said you shouldn't really be driving till you get your new glasses. Well, I've just driven 3,000 miles across Europe. What could be wrong with me eyesight? And now I said, well, yeah, I could see little grey blobs, and all I know is you don't hit those little grey blobs, so everybody's safe. And so now I've got £700 for a pair of glasses, Rodney.
My goodness me! What, for one pair?
Well, it's two pairs, but they do the same job as my eyes used to do, but in a different way. And I have to have two. I suppose it's like having two eyes. Actually, I never thought of it that way. Yeah, £700 for two pairs of glasses. Disgusting. You can buy them. You can buy them from Woolworths for £3.50. Except Woolworths doesn't exist anymore, except in Australia. Ask me something else.
Well, you went. I know, for a well-man's thing with the NHS, and you weren't happy with that. What did they do to you there?
Oh, don't you be so personal. Yeah, yes. Well, I went in, and I've not been for years to the doctors because I don't feel ill. And sometimes, if you do get ill, you feel too ill to go to the doctor. So I've not really seen a doctor. And so I went in, and this is it, right? I am a man of a certain age. Anyway, I am a man of a certain age between 20 and 100. And so I went in, and she checked my chest. She went, very nice, like that. And counted my heartbeat. She said, it was like a carry-on film. She said, oh, your heart's quite fast. I said, no, dear. And things like that. Anyway, she said, my heart's fine. Then she did me blood pressure. She said, oh, your blood pressure's a bit high. I said, well, you're standing very close. And all that kind of thing. And so she said, but I think the blood pressure's just because it's really hot in here and you're a bit stressed. And I said, yeah. And then my cholesterol level was right and everything else. All the things that you have to have were right. And she went back about my liver. She said, oh, 5 years ago, your liver was up by 2 points. Like that. Ooh. And she said, I said to her then, delicately, and I said, that delicate matter of, that man problem and she said, oh, I'm so sorry. We can't do that. I said, what do you mean you can't do that? She said, and this is the truth, Rodney, this is the absolute truth. Well, man, right? I'm a man of a certain age. I couldn't be checked by a British GP, who it turns out wasn't a GP, was actually a paramedic. Now, yeah, she got ambulance parts outside on a motorbike. She's like Batman. And and she couldn't do my downstairs apparatus test, right?
You mean the PSA test?
I didn't know that's what it was called, and I couldn't say what I thought it was called. Anyway, so then I couldn't have a diabetes test, right? Do you know why? Because they didn't have any little bottles for blood. So they said, I'm sorry, we can't do those. We don't have any little bottles for blood. So I said, well, that's a bit silly, isn't it? And she said, well, when are you back in Britain? I said, about 6 months. She said, well, come and see us then. If you're not dead, we'll do the test. Thank you very much, the NHS. And then the coup de grace, she said, oh, with this sonorous, pompous, stupid way that dogs are. And how much are you drinking now? Like that.
Oh, that's a raw nerve, I know.
Well, no, I'm proud of how much I drink. I said a bottle and a half of wine a night. She went, like that. I said, on your bike, get in your ambulance. And she's going, like that. I said, what's up? I said, that's not much. She said, I'm afraid it is. That is that. So I did my old joke about not drinking, only for drinking 4 hours a day, 20 hours a day off. That means I'm having a day off every day. I'm drinking and everything. She got no sense of humour, didn't laugh, didn't smile, didn't do anything. Just sat there going, like that. And she said, it's too much. I said, I'll have a bottle of wine with a meal. She said, no, you can only drink a bottle of wine a week. So I looked quite seriously. I said, are you serious? Are you telling me that people actually only drink one bottle of a wine a week to keep themselves healthy? I said, I don't know anybody who does that. She said, well, I do it. I only have a bottle of wine a week. No, well, you're a bundle of laughs, aren't you? And that was it. So yeah, so now I'm a raging alcoholic because I have more than a bottle of wine a week. So that was my experience with the NHS.
Oh, well, I mean, I knew about this actually, but must tell the viewer this several days ago. And I had an opportunity to phone the NHS and dig a little bit about this. And I said, you're not coping, are you? As I said quite nicely to them, at a major university hospital with an excellent reputation. Nice lady there, not a doctor, but a posh nurse, one of the top ones. And I raised the matter about the glass files.
Yeah.
Oh, well, she said, don't believe everything you read. And I said, yeah, I've heard that somewhere before. Well, you can get them in emergency. It's just that occasionally we run short, but we don't run short in an emergency. We'll always find a glass bottle. So there you are.
Indicated that to me as well, yeah. Oh. If I was dying, if I had a little glass bottle.
Yes, but you could be dying after 6 months not having been tested for a certain thing, which is what has been happening with the cancer bit in the United Kingdom.
Seriously, right, yeah, I agree.
It's been calculated for everybody's information, 10,000 minimum people are not alive since the pandemic started. At least 10,000 because of cancer alone. Now, factor that in and you've got a different ballgame.
It is. And, you know, as you know, and everybody who watches this show every week or whatever, that one person, that, you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe in conspiracies, yet I look at it and think, well, why are we being treated in this way? This is like a cult. This is like a cult of animals, you know, of vermin in the countryside. It's like we're going through a cult. Yeah, at a certain age, off them, get rid of them. Yeah, Dad, tell them they can't have any treatment for cancer. That'll kill them. Don't let them bring any little bottles in. Let's not do PCR tests or whatever. Not PCA test. What is it? I don't know that one. You know, it just is. Don't do that. He'll be gone then. He's over 30. Oh, he'll be gone. It just is. It's like a cult. We are a country and a world on its financial knees, and what we've got are just too many people. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, honest, but it makes me wonder.
Yeah, I tell you what, we're going to go into the deep end, Lee, because certain things have really disturbed me if we're talking about real news and fake news. This last week, on one occasion, and it's illustrative of what we've got to be very careful of. We both agree on a lot of the mainstream news. We agree largely on the Facebook, Twitter and co, social media things. You've got to be so careful. But I had the opportunity to speak to BT at various levels this week, and more of that shortly. And one of the guys was really clued in because he'd lived outside the country for quite a few years, gone back to BT. And I said, what did you do in an earlier life? He said, I went to uni. I said, yeah, like most people. I said, what were you reading? What course are you on? And he said, journalism. I said, oh, that's interesting. He said, yeah. He said, I packed it up after 1 year because they taught me in 1 year how to redact, how to tell lies, how to massage a story to have it completely different from the original. Now, let's push that a bit further. Everybody knows that if you read a headline in The Guardian, as an example, and you read the same story in the Daily Telegraph, you wouldn't think it was the same story. It was yes in the Telegraph and no in The Guardian. And well, that's spin. Call it opinion, but don't confuse it with news. But there's so much going on at the moment. And let's also be honest, let's look at America. Just have a look at Uncle Joe Biden, and especially what happened. Everybody, I think, this side of the pond, not everybody the other side, has seen Boris and Joe together with, of course, Mr. Biden having his crib sheet. He couldn't. This was a relaxed conference before the press. It happens all over the world, and the press are allowed to ask questions, not in the States. And of course, you've never seen a leader with a crib sheet, and he just read from it. And Boris at least had a bit of gumption and said to the press, you can ask me a couple of questions. I saw the black look from Joe. And then the whole press conference finished in a semi-riot as all the aides came round and said, right, that's it, out you get, press. And what more proof do you need? Leigh, you don't need any more, but what more proof does anybody need that this man, the most powerful man in the world, President Biden, is not fit for purpose? And that's putting it mildly.
Where shall we begin then, Rodney?
I don't know. This could take the whole hour up.
We'll begin at the beginning. Right. Your mate who works for BT, when did he do his course in journalism? Do you know?
Oh, yeah, about 3 years ago.
And he did it for a year. And
I think it was in Scotland. I'm not dead sure. I think it was Glasgow, one of the unis there.
Yeah, let's put the cat amongst the pigeons. I think he's making it up. I think it's fake news. I think he's wrong. I think he's possibly not understood what he was there to do. I've been trained in journalism. I'm qualified with the NCTJ. I've taken courses in editing. I'm part of the Guild of Editors. I'm a member of the National Union of Journalists. I've edited newspapers, and I have never. I've been a trainer as well. I've been a newspaper trainer, and I have never ever seen a course advertised that would say, we will teach you how to redact a statement and twist a news story. He's made it up, or he's got it totally wrong, to be fair to him. And if he wants to get in touch with me, I promise I'm not attacking him in any way. I am throwing myself open to him for him to come to me, to give me the details of which college he went to give me the details of the course he was on, to give me the details of the lecturer, and I will investigate. And if that unit is teaching that kind of course, I will expose them. I will expose them to the world through the press, because if that's what they're doing, they deserve shutting down, and I will do everything I can to close them. Point one.
Next hang on, before you move to point two, I agree with you. But I tell you what, it's not just that uni, it's everywhere. And it starts in secondary school, because the dear darlings that run our educational system, the vast majority, are of the same left-wing nature. And it's biased. And you can get that at many, many universities. I'm not talking about the Russell universities where you get top journalists going through. But let's also be honest, Lee, when you say university and half the nation goes there, you're not talking about our days. You've been in Slovakia for 4 years, and even blooming in 4 years, Lee, things have changed. It is not healthy. We don't get the truth, and you've only got to look at America and half our media to know you don't get the truth. This is why GB News is taking off, but you wouldn't think so. Everybody is damning it because they don't want the truth. Now, it's not perfect. It's far from perfect. But the average Joe can actually phone in or email in during a live session and get his point of view out there. The average Joe. Now, certain people have criticised that because, oh, it's a bit tabloid on steroids. Well, it may be, but at least everybody has a point of view. And as long as it's not telling others to blow you up, then it's valid as a point of view.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And the offer still stands. And this now goes to anybody who has taken the course in any kind of disruptive journalism and has been shown the way to create fake news. I will investigate your claims. Just send me the details. I'll guarantee now, Rodney, that nobody will send anything in. Now, I've been in Slovakia for 4 years. Yeah, I have. Do you know, there are things called international journalists who don't really spend all the time in Britain, but are still well in touch with the news industry. And I like to class myself as one of those. We're now moving into Hollywood, as you know, and I'm also therefore quite well aware of the American law. And when I say me and we, I mean you and I. We're going to Hollywood.
Exactly, we are. Listen, I'm doing a bit of promo for him. You see a nice interview in the next 3 days on the channel, and it's a bit chatty and a bit nice, and it's a bit Hollywood. Now, since he's done this Hollywood bit, by the way, I must say that whether you're aware of this, on the 1st of October, Hollywood are actually going on strike. They want some more money, believe it or not. Oh, my goodness me. California, Hollywood. And they're so influential. And let's concentrate on that one word, influential. Influence, the media is powerful. The media can change things overnight. And you shouldn't believe everything you read. Viewer, make your own mind up.
No, don't, because it depends what you compare it with. You see, I hate social media. Everybody knows that. I think social media is completely dishonest and built for morons. And but what we actually have now in the world, which we didn't have before, is social media versus mainstream media. So now we actually have the balance that people have all said were needed in the media. Now, really, if you investigate which one tells the truth and which one tells the lies, it's just an undeniable fact. Social media is the most incoherent, ill-spelt, ill-designed, ill-represented, ill-informed form of media since the medieval times. And now, and also the mainstream media has had to pull its socks up and is generally on the ball and going way ahead. GMB is the television station of the Brexit party, the people who wanted all foreigners to get out of our country to be its own sovereign state and everything else. Oh my God! I wanted Brexit, so did you. The reason we wanted Brexit was because we wanted to defend democracy. How many votes do you want to have to decide to do in a democratic way something? So you and I remember saying it, said, yes, we need to leave Europe. The countries voted for it. But now what we're having to do is bring foreign drivers back into the country pay them to come back into the country. We're having to pay in excess for fruit pickers. And the reason is, I experienced this, and I might have said this last week, I don't know if I did or not, but I'm going to say it again. I witnessed in a pub, one of my spiritual homes, the barmaid behind there saying, well, of course, you see, I've had to do this barmaid work. I don't want to be a barmaid, but all the Slovaks have gone home, so I've got to do it. Well, disgusting, mate. At least the Slovaks were working for a living. What were you doing before you were forced to get a job?
Well, yeah, let's move on a little bit from that. And our Irish correspondent was in Dublin this week. Oh, my goodness me. Now, it's very expensive there. You know, a cup of coffee is like Venice. It is very expensive. And there's some good pubs. So your spiritual home, Leigh, is taken care of in Dublin. If you can afford to go in there and cook yourself some stout. Those were the days. And things have been revealed there because it's been hitherto full of Spaniards working in pubs and restaurants, and a lot of them have gone back. And they've been naughty. They've gone back to Spain, but they're still claiming this extra payment that is being paid throughout Europe, especially in Britain, for COVID. They're still getting the money, and they've gone back. And even more so, on the ferry coming back, our correspondent said he got chatting to one of the young ladies, making sure that you didn't throw yourself over the side of the boat or whatever. And she said, oh, I've got to go back to work. What do you mean? Well, I've been claiming my £700 for so many months by not working. This isn't the right ferry company, but for illustrative purposes only, Brittany Ferries. And I've just been sat back doing nothing. And now another ferry company's come along, and here I am coming back from Ireland, and I'm being paid £900. So that's and it's coming to an end in October. I'm fed up. So there's not a lot of honesty around, and there's a lot of genuine giving money to everybody, and it's keeping them from coming back to work. That is a serious problem, not the whole problem.
No, I agree. I couldn't agree more. The incentive not to work in Britain has been around for decades, and you know, it's not an apocryphal story, but it's quite a funny story about one of my best friends who spent most of his life, spent all of his life, working life, on the dole or the sick. When he got kicks off the dole, he got on the sick, vice versa. He basically had a child a year, so he got a wage rise. And at the end of it, when he'd done his 50 years or whatever it is on the dole, where you or I would get a gold clock from our firm, they gave him his council house. Right? Now, why would you work? I admired this man, because why would you work? Work is not something, we're not put on this earth to work. Work is something that's forced upon us. We're little cogs in schools that are taught to do this and perpetuate our society. But if you can find a way of doing it without hurting people, like being rich, then you know you don't have to work. It's not something you've got to do. So then run forward 30 years, 20 years. We are now still in that same position in a country where it's almost outrageously expensive to live, where if you have a job with an average income, average take-home pay of, or average salary of, what is it, 23,000 a year, and yet a cup of coffee costs you £3.50, or a pint of beer costs you £4 to £5, then where is the incentive to actually work? Because you can't really afford to live on the average wage. Go to university, like you were saying about your friend who made this redactment thing up. He learned he got himself a degree. Oh, well, he didn't, but a lot of people do, and they get a degree to go and work in McDonald's for whatever it is, £8-9 an hour. This country is on its knees, and we need to get the work ethic back into Britain, but not by giving tanker drivers £103,000 a year, right, to decimate the countryside, to pollute the atmosphere. We need to give it to the man on the street and the woman on the street, who then can have the dignity of a life that where they work and perpetuate a good standard of living for themselves. £103 a year, or £103,000 a year, to sleep in the back of a cab like a gypsy.
Well, there's a number of things he's raised there, of course, and yeah, tanker drivers have always had a lot of power, a lot of union power, and they've always been paid a little bit over the odds. Some people say a lot over the odds. Well, there's two things I can mention on this story. Let's go back to the truth. We knew in the motoring industry and the heavy goods vehicle industry, this is a problem waiting to bite. It's just because it's come a perfect storm, and it's happened now, but it's been queuing up. The thing is, sadly, you're right, the average Brit does not want to work. Now, it's a shame about your friend that has got, well, a bit of a genius not being able to work. If he'd applied that genius to a good job, he'd have made a darn sight more money and felt a lot better about himself, but perhaps he doesn't care. Anyway.
He's dead.
Yes, yes. Anyway, so we go to the tanker drivers. Now, why don't the tanker drivers like to work? Well, because they are away from their families for 5 days a week sometimes, not often for that long, because within their means, they've got to drive a lorry to the north of Scotland and park it overnight in a very nice cab in the new lorries, one has to say, with all the mod cons, and then come back. But they don't like, quote, being away from their little family. Now, if you believe that, you're not the average lorry driver. Okay, and then they have Saturday and Sunday off. But that's all part of the game. So now we've got to turn 180 degrees, 360 degrees is round on itself, 180 degrees, and say, come back, Poland, we'll give you some short-term visas, please help us out. Yeah. The other thing that's adjunct to this is that mainstream media, television, came on about this about 4 days ago, seeing it was boiling up. We will go to the M6 and we will go to the lorry park and we will interview some lorry drivers. They interviewed two. Both were women. And I thought, well, that's not your average interview, is it? And they climbed up the steps to show how manly they were, and the cab rocked. And they were attractive women. And they were where's the fellas? Interestingly, this very morning, one of the unions has actually said, we've got to sort something out here. And it appears that 1% of lorry drivers are women. Now, that's what I call fake news. You might call it skewed news, mate, but it's fake news because it's not representative of the truth. Now, I have no objection to women lorry drivers. Get in, girls, take over from the men, show how it's done. We need lorry drivers, but don't create fake news.
But it isn't fake news. That just isn't fake news. It's what it is a decision at that moment as you go. You see, news is news. News is a fact. It usually begins at a local level. Well, it always begins at a local level, and then it graduates up the scale. So by the time it reaches something like ITV, that news element has been discussed by the BBC, by local newspapers, by evening newspapers, by daily newspapers, on social media. And so when you, as a lead journalist on something like ITV or the BBC or anywhere, go out on the story, you're not looking to create fake news. What you're looking for is something a little bit different. And if you see a couple of women lorry drivers, you go, well, that's different. I wonder what they've got to say. And it's that point. It's that single point that people don't understand. It's when you look, well, they're a bit different. I wonder what they've got to say. And you go for it. You go for them. Now, it's just a simple fact. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying...
Leigh, I've never called you naive before, but she's there because she's an attractive lorry driver, completely unrepresentative of the average lorry driver. It's not
basically what I've just said.
Well, I know it is, but so at that point I agree with you. But if you need to stoop to such lengths to get your news thing over, that ain't news. Everybody's going around, especially, bless them, the women liberals, and saying, they are, you see, all the people are. No, they're not. 1% are. I'm in for truth, the whole truth.
It is the truth. Why are those?
No, it's not. It's not the whole truth. It's not representative. It's represented because women need help. No, it's us fellas that need any help.
No, it isn't. It isn't. Listen. Right. That whole news element has been covered from there and there and there and there and there and there and there. Right. So all those news elements are covered. They're all covered. And this poor little ITV journalist says, oh, look at those women. Let's have a word, see what they want. He is then just a cog in the news world that's going round. He's not misrepresented. It's that particular point that he's covered. It's what he wanted to do. It's what his editors wanted to do. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Because news doesn't exist in one block. Now, if it did, then you'd have no news. People say, lorry drivers, mainly men, 1% of women, have gone on strike because of, and that's all anybody would ever say. News is a multifaceted item, and he picked on one, or they picked on one bit to cover. I'm not saying they were right, I'm not saying they were wrong, but I'm saying they've got every right in the multifaceted world of news where every aspect is covered to cover their own little aspect.
Well, I've got to cut this conversation very short at this stage, and
he's getting bad-tempered now.
I've got a serious warning for the women, and you can see it every day if you look at a fella, ladies. And I can't think of a more delicate way to say this, but as you advance in years, you're going to finish up with a fat bum because you're staying in your cab all the time, not moving. So if you want to feel attractive in a fat bum, you carry on with your lorry driving.
That's it, girls. Yeah, big bottom girls. Wonderful. Sorry, carry on.
Yes, I bet we better move on. And yeah, we'll stick with the fake. No, we won't. We'll go to some fact. The Wicked Witch of the North is still with us, doing her bit. And the latest, of course, missive that she's put out this week is she wants 12-year-old girls and boys to change their gender in Scotland if they wish, go on all the hormone drugs, etc. I'm sorry, with the best will in the world and with all the nicety I can suggest, what a daft bat. She's followed it up by saying, your parents will not have the right to dissuade you. Don't even tell them. I mean, she's completely, and furthermore, the Mad Muller of Wales, our wonderful friend Mark, has done a deal with Plaid Cymru on the basis that Plaid Cymru want to increase, allegedly, the rates that English cottage owners are paying by 5 times more than what the Welsh are paying. It's a second home, you'll pay 5 times more. In other words, it's saying, and Wales is reliant on this industry more than any other. It's not just sheep, it's people visiting that wonderful principality with gorgeous scenery. They're not going to come, Leigh. It's potty. What's he up to? It's the same as the lovely Nicola. They want to get total power. That's why they're doing deals with number 2 on the voting list.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tony Blair.
Say that again about Tony Blair.
Thank you, Tony Blair.
Thank you, Tony Blair. Thank you. Yes, thank you for taking us to war. Thank you for lying to us. Thank you for becoming our peace envoy as a man who was instrumental in the murder of millions. Yes, thank you, Tony Blair. Down to the glorious Nicola Sturgeon. Yeah, what a
your ex one has to say at this place.
My ex. She's my ex. Yeah. What a wonderful, wonderful, charming, intelligent, witty, terrible woman. You know, to have put children in this strange position of power over their own sexuality beyond the control of their parents and their families is absolutely heinous. Not because I have anything, any axe to grind with gay people or people who in their adult lives choose to have a different sexuality or a different approach to life. But to give a child at 12 years old who might find the whole thing very glamorous and outrageous and a bit of puerile anarchy, yeah, just terrible, just shameful. And how Scotland can do this is it based on the fact that the men have always worn dresses? And so, yeah,
skirts, please. Right, that brings us to another power-crazed person, Mr. Biden. No, that's not fair. I don't think he is power-crazed. Actually, he's being used and abused.
Just crazed,
my friend. And we've got to go back to Afghanistan and the Bagram airport. Now, it's about 400 miles from China, that's all. It's about 500 miles from Iran. Interesting points. And he's left billions of dollars of the latest tech there with whoever wants to come in, whether it be Afghanistan, China, or Iran. Now you think, that's interesting. Then you think of Mr. Biden's son and the computer nonsense, which has been proved undoubtedly the guy is guilty now of lots of things, whether it was caused by drugs, which I'm sure it was, alcohol, the mixture of both, I don't know, but you got up to no good. And Uncle Joe, of course, has been pals with Beijing for many, many years. Now, you're edging on conspiracy here, but it's worth mentioning, Lee, that things are going on here that are not right. He's been condemned even by his own Democrats for that. How long is he going to last? And as we keep saying, just look at who's coming along. I think I'd sooner have Meghan than the vice president that will come to be president in the US.
I think you're right. I think Joe Biden will last as long as the orange maniac who was before him. And you know, I think they, in their own ways, they have their own peccadillos. The lovely Mr. Trump's brother, it was an alcoholic. Trump's family admits it was the most dysfunctional family on the face of this earth. Trump was a great orator. That was the difference. Trump had charisma and oratory powers and was, in his own way, almost a star. But unfortunately, a dark star. Now, Biden himself, yeah, his son has been a naughty boy. I defy any man here, possibly, with your exception, to say that they've not been a naughty boy. I've been a really naughty boy all my life. And
you're still a naughty boy.
Pardon?
You're still a naughty boy.
I am a naughty boy, yeah, and you're not going to get the chance to spank me. And yeah, it's just one of those things. Manly men are a bit naughty. And yeah, his son did that, and he's done some bad things. So did Trump's dad. So did everybody. You can't just pick on a member of Biden's family. Biden's problem is that he's a complete idiot. And unfortunately, through nice little bits of filming and a nice smile and a history of getting things wrong throughout his political life, the world fell for him. And now he can't do it.
Leigh, just look in his eyes. There's nothing there.
Well, there is. There is. If you look, you can see, the crib sheets in blood where he's reading from.
The puppet masters are having a great time over in the States.
Yeah, of course they are, but that's politics anyway.
We'll go to another story that he's bound to agree with me on, because again, it involves the Tinternet, and basically a lot of bad news is coming out of Israel, because they were way ahead with their jabs and have jabbed the third jab, and it's all over the internet via the anti-vaxxers. You've not got to have the third, well, you've not got to have any jabs, but especially don't have the third jab, because it is now proved that you'll die of COVID. Now, when you look at the figures, and indeed go to Reuters fact checker on this, these are not the facts. Please, guys, have your jab, because there are a certain amount of people that will be unluckily having blood clots, but compare it with the clots that don't have the jab and finish up dead, it's infinitesimal. Have the jab. And getting back to Israel, you've got a situation whereby when you dig down, drill down into the figures, those take into account the vast majority of people that have had the first jab for the statistics. And don't forget, the jabs take quite a number of days, and sometimes are longer than days, even weeks, to have an effect. That's why you have a second jab. And even the second jab, you have to wait quite a few days to get the full 95% defenses. The vast majority of these people that have suffered demise or serious affections were in the early stages of that jab. So do have your jabs. It'll come all right in the end. Israel, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Let me just, if you noticed, I sort of disappeared a little bit at that moment because it's something I'd looked up a few weeks ago, and I found it very quickly. Again, do you know how many people die because of flu vaccines? Yeah. Now, I'll tell you, you nodded very sagely. Now, actually, I was looking at a freedom of information request to the government. Do you know what? The government will not tell you how many people died from flu vaccines. Now, why then? Why? You see, this again goes back to the non-conspiracy within the conspiracy theories of somebody who doesn't believe in conspiracy theories. Why won't they tell you how many people die from flu vaccines? And yet all this stuff comes out about COVID vaccines. You know, all right, I'll have my third one. If I'm allowed to have my third one. I don't know if I'm old enough to have my third one. I don't know. I just don't know what goes about it, but I'll have a third one. And I'll feel quite happy. If I've been filled with little Bill Gateses in little submarines floating around my body, well, that's all right. It's not really going to do me any harm, is it? I don't know. But no, yeah, Israel, don't worry about it. You're doing all right.
Well, yeah, adjunct again to this one is another story that's coming out on local press and social media, not lumping them both together, some very good local press around. But apparently, Portugal is a very good place to be if you get really poorly. I will vouch for that because I got very good treatment, still receiving very good treatment. Great, so I'm a fan. number 17 in the world, they reckon Portugal, with the top boys. If you're in the first 50, you're good. Now, that's all right. And then I looked at the article and the paper, I read it in, and it came over the net, which is convenient in one sense, because you can get immediate replies from people. And can I urge people, when they're checking into the veracity of the story, sometimes, not always, but sometimes, it's best to go to what the people themselves think, the people that will write a reply in, either agreeing or dismissing it. There were about 20 after this story, and everybody said, rubbish, check your facts. Things are not sweetness and light, especially if you have to rely on the National Health Service in Portugal. You can wait 2 years to get a GP for a start. There are certain things that do not work in their National Health Service over here, where we are at the moment in Portugal. If you go for private medicine, which, can I say, costs buttons compared with the British and American system, that's if you can afford a little bit extra. My goodness me, do you get cracking treatment? And of course, going back to the NHS in Britain, stop treating it as a religion. Let the private people come in there, give the NHS some competition, which is what it needs. That's the way to uplift things. If you dare, stop sitting on your backside, being very comfortable. GPs hiding, still a lot of press coming out about hiding GPs. It's still going on. Britain is a disaster with their National Health Service. It's got to change radically. No politician will do it, Leigh.
No, it's yeah, the NHS is something we discuss on a regular basis, and I think we both tend to agree on it. You know, it's not free. People still say it's free. It's not free. It's free at points of exit, is what the excuse is for it. That if you, or free at the points of use, I don't know what the phrases that are used. But, you know, if you need to go in and have an operation for cancer or for any of the other major problems, then, yeah, you don't have to pay for it. You don't have to pay for it. But what people forget is you paid all your life for it. You paid for that moment. And the majority of people, unlike certain people I know who are in and out of doctors' surgeries, out in and out of care situations, in and out of hospitals, in and out of every kind of thing you can think, absolutely bleeding dry, the NHS. The majority of people might have one or two experiences through their lives where they need hospital treatment. And yeah, if you work that out, work 50 years, paid, just say roughly, because I'm not very good at maths, just say you paid roughly £100 a month for 50 years. What does that work out? I have no idea. I wish I hadn't started this, but it's a lot of money. And so those operations that you have in your later years could cost thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. But don't think for a second you haven't paid for them. They are your right.
Yep. And before we leave the subject, finally, I'd like to support the NHS in this one way, because there's some disasters coming out, and supporting the doctors and nurses, especially at hospital level, and especially in the capital. My goodness me, gang stabbings are on the up again. They're supposed to be coming down. Don't believe it. They are dragged into hospital. And actually, London and the top hospitals have got a fame now for actually keeping people alive. If you're going to get stabbed in London, because they've had more practice in keeping you alive. That is a fact. And you can probably get away with it. But what is happening now is that the gangs are actually coming in the hospitals themselves to finish off the victim in numbers. Now, with most hospitals, the wards are shut off for security reasons. You wonder why. This is why. And if you're a guy that is running away, bleeding to death, and you can imagine what a trauma this is, trying to get in a room to escape the gangs that are after you. And doctors and nurses, of course, are placing themselves on the front line. They could easily be stabbed. What a society we've got. Goes beyond that, because I've dealt a lot with the NHS over various matters this week, and many GP practices, all you hear is select number 1, number 2, and number 3. Before you get that far and doze off, there's always a health warning, and that health warning is, please treat us nicely, don't treat us roughly. We don't want to hear foul language. We don't want to hear attacking. We have to say this. These are ordinary GP surgeries in rural areas that I've been phoning, not the cities themselves. Attitude in Britain is not good, Leigh.
No, definitely not. I've witnessed it in the month we've been back here. The attitude, I don't understand. I just don't understand it. I can't. Here's a prime example of it. And it's not a type of violence or anything else. Just ignorance and stupidity, and that, unfortunately, is what you've met with in shops and service places all across the UK. Andrea went into a post office. You remember those? With little nice people behind the counter. You say, "How may I help you?" and things like that. Yeah. Andrea stood before the counter, and this is what she saw. And she was standing there, and this woman just sat there like that. She thought she was dead, so she gave her a shove. Well, she didn't, because there was a window there, but she was trying to shove her on it, so you know, like that. She wasn't. She was adding up. And so she sat there like that, totally ignored her customer. Then all of a sudden, somebody who Andrea knew came down the corridor of the shop like that and said, "Oh, hello, Andrea. Not seen you for ages. Oh, no, not seen you, have I?" Like that. And they had a little conversation. And this woman says, "Well, have you been? I've not seen you. Have you been ill?" She says, "No, I've been on holiday for 4 years." And she said, "Yeah, well, we're back in Britain. Then we're going to Portugal." So this head that was like that suddenly went, "I hate Portugal. It stinks." Like that. That's Britain for you. That's British service.
I mean, it's the same thing, Leigh. It's called a monopoly. But I'll tell you what, the Royal Mail are wonderful compared with what you get in Spain. You try and go to a post office in Spain, they're quite polite now. They didn't used to be. They used to have that attitude, but somebody's done something. General Franco's resurrected. So anyway, whatever's happened, they're polite now, but you still have to wait for blooming hours and queuing up in the heat. That is not attractive. Now, Portugal's better, a little. They're more efficient. They'll see you earlier. But having delivered a letter to them, that's got to go to UK, Great Britain. Actually, it's going to Wales. They don't understand Wales. Well, what's Wales? And eventually you get the thing over. And I said, "It's a contract. It's quite important. When will it arrive?" Nothing. I said, "Well, you know, is it going to be 3 days, 5 days? Ever? So I said, "Well, I've got to say, I have been to DHL before I came here, knowing what the postal service is like in Portugal." So she said, "Well, what do you go to DHL for?" "Well, they will deliver it tomorrow." "It's weekend tomorrow." "Well, they'll still deliver it." "And how much will they charge you?" €44. And this is for 2 pages in a little envelope. I mean, DHL, come on, you're efficient. But there's a difference between efficient and rip-off efficient. And that's a rip-off. And you're famous for it worldwide. You might be the best at delivering. But no, I said, well, I'll take my chance.
Yeah, I agree. At some stage, we can talk about my experience with DHL. Absolutely ridiculous. And amazingly enough, not particularly expensive, but really bad service. Oh. And we'll go into that another time. Yeah, you see, the thing is, we are a global world, and surely you should be able to ship goods. We do it all the time with bananas and oranges. You know, why can't we do it with a set of tables or a letter? Why has it got to be such a crisis? Here's a tip for you, DHL. We all know that haulage companies rent a bit of space on the back of a truck somewhere to take something across. Well, you could do that as well. You could do that. Instead of renting your space out to these people, do your job properly first and then have a look at it. DHL, yeah. Also, watch out for the scams, which are nothing to do with DHL. It's internet scams. But you phone them up about and say, well, we mentioned that on our internet site. So, well, that's not good enough, because people don't go to your internet site until they've been stitched up by somebody who's pretending to represent you. And yeah, DHL, lot to answer for, damaged. Very briefly about them, a friend of ours who is an artist, a painter, you know, by renown, sent some paintings back through DHL. When she got them back, somebody had cut through the packaging with what the equivalent of a Stanley knife or whatever you would call it, and had cut the paintings too. DHL said nothing to do with us. No, you didn't have the right insurance. Thank you very much, DHL. There's another dissatisfied customer.
Yeah. Well, we've got to call out these people. They've got to improve. They've got the money to improve. They're the big boys. Big boys, as we keep saying, do become bully boys. We must support the little man. And can I mention at this stage, even though we're not supporting other news media, but there's certain things that GB News have got right. And when you come to their money program, it's great. It's not these high-flying bankers that purport to know what they're talking about. They don't. It's the man running a horticultural place, importing from abroad tulips and whatever else they grow in Holland and lavender from France, mentioning what the problem is. Well, the naughty foreigners are really taking their own back from Brexit. They have to fill that many forms in. It costs them a fortune.
Yeah.
And it's driving them round the bend. But all of them say, and there were several interviews saying the same thing, we've got to find a way around this. As entrepreneurs, we will.
Yeah.
Now, that's what we need in Britain, not the big companies saying you do it our way or no way. The little man must be preserved. He must not be gobbled up by the big people. And I like your statement, two statements. I mean, this is going to go down in history, Lee, about the world being globalist and also what to do with the banana. I think you've starred today, and I'm going to finish off. We've got to go, mate. And yes, well, it's the Lancet. Now, the Lancet is the most credible journal for doctors in the world. Everybody goes, even from America. Oh, it was in the Lancet. It must be true. Let me tell you, the front page of the Lancet this week, which has driven people to a swearing mode like you wouldn't believe. This is referring to the ladies. Sorry, I can't say ladies. I've got to say women. This is referring to the women. It says bodies with vaginas. Ladies, you are not allowed to be called women anymore.
No.
This is what the Lancet says. Where are we, Lee? Is there any way back from this woke nonsense? This is because of course, you're going to affect the trannies. Not the grannies, the trannies.
I don't know. I just don't. I have no idea. I know there. You see, the Lancet isn't saying on this that that's what is. It has to happen. It's saying this is what a load of idiots in this world have put forward. And the beauty and the eccentricity of Britain is that you've always had the Flat Earth Society. You've always had the people who come up with the most tin pot, ridiculous ideas.
You mean Screaming Lord Such, don't you? I'll tell you what, I'd vote for him now.
Yeah, well, I would as well. He was a good mate of mine. I used to go get drink. I used to go drinking with him. He lived just up the road, just past Ozzy Osbourne's. And what a team that was!
What a triune! I mean, come on. Thanks, Osborne and Screaming Lord are your next rulers, folks. I've got to leave it there. I cannot better that. Leigh, thank you so much.
Yeah, really good. Speak to you next week.
He's got no trousers on.
I haven't.
Have you not?
Would you like me to stand up?
No.
And yeah, we've got a woman. Oh no! She's chucking things at me.
Yes. Right.
All right, I'm going to shoot off and go and get some bread.